name is Jack Hansen Jr., and I am the host for the Jack Hansen Show. On my show, I will provide my interviews of people to help explain the KW versus Armstrong class action lawsuit. I will also give you important updates about what is happening with Medicaid for adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. On my last two shows, I interviewed Richie Upping, the SELU legal director, covering the key points and explaining the KW versus Armstrong class action lawsuit and what it is too. This week I'm talking with Art Evans. Art is the Bureau Chief of Developmental Disability Services for Idaho Medicaid. Let's get started. Art, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Jack. I'm glad to be here.
Art, what are the key points of the KW versus Armstrong's class action settlement?
The first key point, I think, for us is the creation of a new way to figure out how much money a person needs to have the supports to keep them in the community and keep them safe. So we call that a new budget supports model. And so that's something that we're working on and I think is very important. The second one is making sure that someone who is in our program has the opportunity to have someone represent them if they are doing a budget appeal. And a budget appeal is when you get your eligibility and budget notice and you feel like that the budget isn't enough to cover your needs, and so you submit what we call an appeal, which I think you're going to explain later, Jack. And in that process, we're going to make sure that there are what we call suitable representatives available to represent people in those fair hearings. And the third thing is making sure that the eligibility, so as you know, Jack, when you apply for services or when you have a redetermination, you have paperwork that is done to help determine your level of care, the budget that you get, and all of that paperwork, the CIBAR, which is one of the tools we use, the inventory of individual needs, those things will be available upon request for you to receive to help you with your budget appeal. So I think those are three things in the settlement agreement that are really important and that we're actually looking forward to working on.
Thank you for the explanation, Art. How can adults with disabilities get involved with and bring attention to these changes?
Well, the first thing I want to talk about, Jack, is an organization or a meeting that we called Community Now. So Medicaid, in cooperation or partnership with the DD Council, started a group called Community Now. And that group was comprised of people from Medicaid and people from the DD Council, and
Including myself.
including you, and other providers of services. But more importantly, it included adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their family members to come together and to answer questions and tell us how can the services be better, what needs to change, what's not working. And the thing that I liked about those meetings is that those people receiving the services, people with adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, were the ones who were speaking. The rest of us were listening. We weren't answering the questions, we were listening to your answers. And that was pretty exciting because I don't often get a chance to talk to the adults who receive our services directly. I hear from providers, I sometimes hear from parents, but this gave me an opportunity to hear directly from folks like you, Jack. The other thing that we did, now those meetings are done and there's going to be a report that comes out of that. But the other thing that we did is we traveled around the state with attorneys from the department and from ACLU, with myself and Christine Pisani from the DD Council. We traveled around the state and met with adults and their families and let them tell us what was working, what wasn't working. We went to all 7 regions, we had 14 meetings, spent many days on the road so that we could hear what needed to change. And that's part of the settlement agreement, to keep the adults who receive these services, to keep them involved in the changes that we're making. The But going forward, in the future, there are a couple of ways that people can contact the department and give us information. The first way, you can call and give information, and the phone number to call is 1-844-793-1286. So that's one way. The other way is you can email to the department, you can email information or comments, and that is at kw@dhw.idaho.gov. One last thing before I forget. Not only did we have meetings around the state, I will continue on a quarterly basis to be in different regions of the state where people can come and meet with me and do some of the same things we did on what we call the listening tour and community now, and that is talk directly to me and tell me what's working, what's not working, how we can improve, and then I'll also be able to share progress that we're making in the development of the settlement agreement.
Thank you for another question that is very powerful in my heart, and I really feel strong about this. I was the one that came up with this question. What is your point of view on how people, on how adults with disabilities, on how all people with disabilities should be treated?
Jack, I think that's a great question, and it's one that's important to me as well. I believe that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities should be treated just the same as any other person. That all people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and people with disabilities or any other differences in their lives are no exception to that. Respect and dignity and equality are very important things. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that we should not put restrictions on other people based on our perception of their ability or inability, their strengths or their weaknesses. That we should let people grow and become pursuers of their dreams, pursuers of the things that they want in their lives, and encourage and help facilitate the fulfillment of those dreams for all of us. And so to me, people are people. Everybody, every human being.
Treated as equals.
Absolutely, they should be treated as equals, they should be accepted, they should be embraced, and be a part of our whole culture and our whole society.
What that means, folks, is that on my show, I said that I will give you updates to on all people with disabilities, on the changes that is coming for all people with disabilities, not just some. I want to do that on my show. When I agreed to do this show, I said everyone's going to hear it. No one's going to be left out. When I agreed to do this show, equal rights, equal opportunities is what I believe in, and that's what and dang well and that's what I dang well believe in. With that, thank you very much, Art, for your time with us today.
My pleasure, Jack.
If you have any questions about what we talked about today, or any about the KW versus Armstrong class action lawsuit, or any of the things that we covered throughout the entire show, or even the changes in the Medicaid program for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, you can go to www.ourhealthandwelfare.org. On the website, there's a place where you can contact the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the ACLU helps represent all of the adults with the developmental and intellectual disabilities affected by the changes. Thank you for viewing the Jack Hansen Show, and we'll see you again soon.